Welcome to Web3 and Me, presented by FLOLiO. I'm your host, Jeremy Weber, and I am joined, as always, by Dan Vondelok. Dan, how are things over in the Netherlands?
Great. The weather is kind of bad, but I'm feeling good. So I'll take it. And how
Okay,
about you?
doing good, man. Survived the snowboarding trip
That's always
last
good.
weekend, which was nice. I did take a few pretty nasty falls on the
Oh yeah.
last last run of the day on Friday when we got done
Mm.
recording our Q1 review show. So I don't know if it was initially going to be my last run of the day, but I think the falls that I took kind of led to that decision. So,
Yeah.
we're here, no major injuries, and we are ready to push forward and deep dive into Azuki today. If you watched our Friday show, which was, like I said, a quarter one review and a brief quarter two preview, we discussed Azuki because things got a little crazy with them Wednesday night, and
Mm-hmm.
it continued on through Friday and Saturday. So we want to dive a little bit deeper into that project, why we think it did what it did. And if you're unfamiliar with it, we're going to start actually with a little recap, of what Azuki is, who's running the project. So, Dan, anything else that happened over the weekend that you want to discuss before we dive into Azuki today?
Over the weekend. I don't know over the weekend, but yesterday there was some drama about people coming up with fake news regarding cool cats, and
Yeah,
I know we posted some stuff about it on Twitter using some colorful language. Uh,
yeah.
but
The host of another YouTube NFT show, who I find to be incredibly irritating, decided to host a Twitter Spaces
Breaking
basically with the
news.
title of like breaking cool cats being acquired, even though there was no basis in fact for what they
Yeah.
were saying. And I think that's, we don't have the biggest following, Dan, but they have a pretty good sized following between YouTube and Twitter. And I think that there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with that
Mm.
and spreading falsehoods. And, I'm interested to see if any of them had like cool cats or cool pets like listed for
I
sale
wonder. I
and
wonder.
were using
Yeah.
their reach to try and get those sold. I personally had nothing to do with it. I had a cool pet listed for sale that got scooped up during that run, so I guess I should thank them because they got a little bit of money back in my pocket. So I'm not going to complain too much there. But I just think it's pretty annoying when you start a whole thing. You got you know tens or even 100,000 people who follow you on social media, and you're just basically making stuff up because you
Yeah.
heard a rumor that may or may not be true. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty asinine.
I definitely
So
agree.
that's my thoughts on that. So we saw the trickle down effect that tends to happen when these projects like Azuki run up.
Hmm.
You see a project go from an 18 ETH floor, which is high to begin with, up to almost 35 ETH, and that adds a lot of liquidity into people who sold.
Yeah.
And we saw that money. Usually there's like a delayed effect. Usually it's like one weekend we see one project run up, the next weekend we see like a lower price tier run up. This time it was all in the same weekend,
Hmm.
and it was in still that middle range. Like we saw Clone X really move on Sunday. We saw the
Yeah.
same thing happen with Doodles. And so it definitely seemed like people who sold Azuki hopefully pocketed some money for, tax purposes, because that's definitely going to be a thing. And then put the rest of it back to work, which is great for the market. And it I it was interesting though, because over the weekend we saw a lot of people complaining on social media about how, like, what has Azuki done to warrant
Yeah. Yeah.
this run up, and a lot of them were Doodles and Clone X holders. I'm just going to say it. And
Mm.
so it's kind of annoying to see them get paid off for just kind of being babies about it, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Let's move past that and let's jump into Azuki. So I think first what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the team behind the project, because that's one of the first things that both you and I look at
Yeah.
when deciding to invest in something. Kind of a brief rundown of what Azuki is, and then let's get into why they really took off over the weekend. So the Azuki team, if you go to their website, has 8 main members right now. There are the 4 founding members of the lab that runs it. I believe it's pronounced Chiru Labs. Dan,
Hmm.
is that correct?
I think.
So that
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, we'll go with that. So that is Zagabond, Hoshiboy, 2 p.m. Flow, and Location TBA. And one thing that these guys all have in common is that they've, in some capacity, worked for big tech companies,
Yeah.
whether that's Google, Facebook. Some of them have been with Y Combinator, which does a lot of investing in startups. So they all have experience in the tech space that definitely has them uniquely prepared to grow this business. You then have 4 other members of the team: Steamboy, I want to pronounce it right, Neo, Daff, and Demna. Steamboy and Neo are the artists. One of them has Steamboy worked for Overwatch. He's actually the art director for them,
Mm-hmm.
which I know, Dan, you're a big fan of the art that they created. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, because just to mention it real quick, the like Enjo or Enyo or Neo or the other artist, the Korean artist, they like the combination they have for the art sector is so strong. So they did the Street Fighter comic, and then
Hmm.
Steamboy, like you mentioned earlier, was the former character art director for Overwatch, which is literally one of the only strong points about Overwatch in general, is the fact that the art's on point, and it's just so sick to see them working on this, and it really translates well. Like you see the characters, they're the 1 out of 1s were absolutely amazing. I still love them, and even the floor Azukis are great. So
Yeah, that was one of the things that got my attention when I bought my first Azuki a couple months ago. Was I think of all the PFP projects, Azuki's may have my favorite art. I think that
hmm
the detail is really great. Like visually, it's very pleasing. One thing they have going for them is that there are distinct male and female characters in the Azuki lore and in their
yeah,
story, and so I think that appeals to a broader range of people. And then also doing a really great job of trying to tap into anime fans in that whole market. So I think that they have a lot going for them visually, and they have a lot going for them on the tech side of things. One thing very early on that people noticed was that they were the first team to put out the ERC
yeah,
721A,
they made
that type
it.
of token. So yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that, Dan?
Yeah, definitely. So they made ERC 721A, and for the people that don't know, that basically allows you to mint for like 50 to 80% cheaper, especially if you mint in batches. So let's say if you mint 5, it becomes more and more efficient the more you mint. Um, and this changed a lot. So even for minting 1, you would save roughly 50% on minting. And this is for in an era where you would pay, like let's say if you mint something for 0.05, you would literally pay 0.05 in gas as well. Like it was nuts. Like I must have spent so much like money in gas, like minting these horrible projects and paying the equivalent in gas. Like it's really crazy. And they had this amazing Dutch auction that I don't know where it started at, but I know it went to 1, and then it took 2 or 3 minutes, and then they sold out, and people paid like for $4 in gas or something, or maybe
That's pretty great.
like between four or like $20 in gas. It was insane. So that's
And we'll
yeah.
Yeah, we'll dive more into that later because I think that's
Mhm.
definitely one of the reasons to continue to be bullish on
Yeah.
them. So as we get later in the show, we'll talk about kind of what we can take away from Azuki and why we're so bullish long term. So that was one thing that they created on the tech side. Now, what Azuki is, and I'm going to end up pulling up their page on OpenSea because I want everyone to kind of see, if they've never seen Azuki, how good the art is. So if you are listening on podcast form, go ahead and jump in around like 8.5 minutes on YouTube if you want to see what Azuki looks like. So the Azuki characters, like I said, they're all anime, a lot of different traits. They're all holding most of them are holding weapons of some kind. So it definitely seems like part of the story behind it is there's some form of battle. We don't really know what exactly that is yet. So these are the Azuki. All different traits, you know, female, male, weapons, different elements. You have like the fire, you have water. So a lot of really, really cool stuff. You may have noticed right here, there's a this cute guy with the onesie on. There's a
Yeah.
sloth. So there are 3 main animals that are some of the traits with these. So you have sloth, frog, and red panda. I'm a big fan of red pandas. So my Azuki has a red panda beanie on, and I absolutely love him. He's great. So there are 10,000 Azuki, and these all grant access to the garden. So that is part of the story behind it. Is they're from this garden. They're referred to as the beans because they came from you have to take the red bean to create your Azuki, and that's part of the lore right there. Now they have a very interesting mind map. So other projects call it their roadmap. Azuki calls it the mind map. So Dan, when you first looked at that, what were a few of the things that jumped out to you?
Yeah, so the very first thing that jumped out to me was that they were really realistic about what they were putting out on their roadmap, on their mind map. It wasn't them promising the world. It was, I would say, some of the things were definitely I wouldn't say far fetched, but how like ambitious, right?
Ambitious? Yep.
Ambitious, that's the word. But not like out of this world. And the way they put it. Maybe you can pull up the mind map yourself, so we can take a look
Yep.
at it. They have this. It's like one of those websites where you can see like the work in progress. They have like completed and oh, we're doing this and this is like not possible, and it's very professional. Like it's like I'm looking at like a Adidas like store page or something.
Yeah. So if we look at the mind map here, there are six different points on it, plus this last part, which is connect your mind. So essentially, you can submit ideas for the Azuki project and the
Hmm.
team will see it, which I think is a really cool feature. So if
Yeah.
we look at, let's just start from the top, we have their vision and values. And as someone who has spent a lot of time studying businesses and has run a business and managed people, having a strong set of, values and a big picture view, your vision, I think is very important. And so for them to make that the very first thing on their map is really good. I think that they have their heads in the right places. Like I said, they've worked with big tech companies, so they've seen what it takes to, run
Yeah.
something that is, world changing, if you will, which I think is great. We look at what they're trying to do with their community. As you said, Dan, they have like progress updates
Yeah.
on their mind map. So they
Love
have
that.
their full-time mod team. They're doing grants. They're hosting community spaces. We move into their metaverse. And this is something that I think is really smart on their part. So they already have their gallery completed. We'll touch real quick on Bobu. So the price point on Azuki is really expensive. It is, 27 Ethereum to buy a floor one right now. The beans that we'll talk about more are about 5 ETH. However, if you still want access to it, there is Bobu the bean farmer. And Bobu is one of the Azuki. He is a farmer, like I said. He's got a little bit of a drinking problem, is what the lore behind it is. But they worked with fractional.art to fractionalize this NFT, and they have tokens that you can buy that grant you voting rights to, what they're going to do with Bobu moving forward, which I think is really cool. So you can check that out on all the resale sites. Just search Bobu, and you'll pull it up. And for about 0.15 to zero point 0.2 ETH, you can own a fractional piece of an Azuki, which I think is a really cool feature. Now, looking at the metaverse part, one thing that sticks out to me is they talk about how few teams have the experience in the background to build a great game, a great metaverse with mass appeal.
Hmm.
They are a team that has the skills to do it. However, they're not locking themselves into it if it's not going to be high quality, which I think is a very good thing.
Yeah.
Too many projects start off saying that they're going to create a game and a token and all this other stuff, and if it's low quality, it's not worth doing. And so I think the fact that they're being realistic, knowing how tough it is to pull something like this off, that if they get into it, they start building it, and it's not going to be up to their standards, they're not going to do it. I think speaks volumes about
Yeah.
where their heads are at with this and how they're trying to build something for the long term and not just potentially jeopardize what they're doing in the
Yeah.
short term.
Because it's it requires composure, right? They could, if
Yeah.
they wanted to, they could say, guys, next month we're dropping a game, and we're going to run for president, and we're going to the moon. Like, they could
Yeah.
literally pump the price up to 60, 70 ETH if they wanted to, right? By just
Yeah.
promising the world. But they know that it's not sustainable. And the second they fail to deliver, it has a lasting impact on the project. But right now,
Yep.
as far as I know, there's no negative stigma around Azuki whatsoever, only positive things. So that it just goes to show that they're really building a brand, and they're doing it well.
Absolutely. We talked building a brand, Dan. Their next part of the roadmap is the physical world. So they're building their first apparel drop. They teased a really cool looking jacket that I would like to buy, but I don't know if I'm cool enough to pull it off, but I'm going to give it a shot anyways. So they're going to have streetwear that looks like it's very high quality. They had their first IRL meetup during NFT LA. It was a garden party. We'll talk about that more in the future. So they're trying to do stuff that involves, the metaverse and the real world. We talked about they're bridging, this gap between online community and in-person community. And they're trying to, create eventually a DAO. They have partnerships that are in progress. They're going to have their token in the future. And I think they're going to learn from BAYC and how they did their token drop and try to make sure that they're doing this as best as possible. So that is the mind map for Azuki. A lot of really great stuff there. I'm very excited by what they're building out and kind of the approach they're taking. It does seem like they have borrowed, like I said, from Yuga Labs a little bit of the way that they approach things with the, under promise, over deliver, because so far their delivery has been great and they've made it a lot of fun. So we've talked about, what Azuki is, how they're going to grow. Now let's get into why they had such a huge run up over the last few weeks. So you mentioned that they had this Dutch auction that sold out at 1 ETH. That was back in January. That was January 12th was when they sold out. So it's almost been 3 months now, which it feels like years in NFT time, but it's only been 3 months.
Yeah.
They had a pretty decent run up just off of hype, excitement. They had a bit of a pullback. The floor came back down. The floor ran up to the double digits very quickly. It started at 1 with the Dutch auction, but it went past 10 into the low teens pretty quickly. Then it pulled back to single digits for a while and just kind of traded sideways as the team was building and preparing for this next phase. So we saw in recent weeks a lot of well-respected people start buying into the project. You have some crypto Twitter influencers like Keyboard Monkey and Moon Overlord. You have some big names in NFTs like Dingling, who we talked about the other day, a few other influencers who I'm not going to mention. But we had, a lot of people start to buy in, and there was hype that started to grow around this party they were hosting during NFT LA. So the merch information started to come out, and there was also marketing material around the party where they said that there'd be some sort of announcement, and that got people really interested. So Dan, did you have any thoughts about that when you first noticed it?
I saw on Twitter they had, or might have been Instagram, I'm not sure. They posted like a video of like a plane flying around with like the banner with like Azuki flying over LA, I think.
Yeah.
And that's all I really noticed myself from like an outsider like perspective. I suddenly like I tend to check the OpenSea rankings a little bit too much, and I happened to notice this. Something official, I think it was called, right? Their airdrop, because that's what they announced at the party, right?
Yep. So the speculation leading up to the party was that it could be potentially an announcement of a collaboration, and the brand Supreme was the one that most people were thinking it was going to be, because Azuki is kind of being compared to like the Supreme of the NFT world, just with the quality of their product, how cool it is. The other thought was that it would be a companion airdrop, following in a similar timeline to BAYC, because a few months after they launched, BAYC had the dogs that you could claim for free if you were an ape holder. So that was the other, those were the two main theories I saw, was the announcement of a collaboration or some kind of airdrop. At the party on Wednesday night of last week, Zagabond, who is for all intents and purposes the head of the project, he told everyone during his speech at the party to check their wallets and to go to OpenSea and look at their accounts. And that was when the something official crates got delivered. So I think that's another really cool kind of innovative thing, was at that exact, seconds before he said it, they initiated an airdrop. And it was literally a crate with a parachute on it that was dropped into people's wallets. So I think that kind of detail, that kind of doing something fun and unique,
and the bridging
also got people very, that's exactly, bridging it from the physical to the, Dan, full circle.
There you go.
I love it. That was great. I'm in awe of you at the moment. So everyone got airdropped 2 crates, and immediately those things started getting sold. So I woke up I was already, my old ass was in bed when this party was going on. So I didn't see it until the following morning. I pulled up, every day I look at the morning volume charts on FLOLiO, and I saw this like something official was on the chart, and I was like, "What is
Yeah.
this?" And
Yeah.
I pulled up Twitter. I saw it. I checked my wallet. I noticed that there were two of them there, and they were at the time going for about 3 ETH. As we moved further into the weekend, Thursday they started to go up in price. 4.5, and then on Friday, which was also April Fool's Day, the crates opened and it was just a box of dirt, and no one had any idea what
Yeah.
that meant. And I was like, okay, maybe this is a joke. I hope this isn't a joke, because if people just spent $10,000 on a
Imagine.
box
Yeah.
of dirt, that would be crazy. But the price kept going up. Like, people were like, "Oh, box of dirt! I should probably spend 5 Ethereum on that," and the price just kept going. Another innovative thing they did was on Saturday they, for a second time, changed the metadata.
Yeah.
So the crate, the data behind it changed to reveal the dirt, and then on Saturday it changed again to reveal a bean pod. And now the prevailing belief, based on the bean pod, based on some of the Azuki tweets where allegedly the pods took over Zagabond's account,
Oh
is
yeah.
that the pods contain both a red bean and a blue bean. So we're not sure what that means. We don't know if the red bean can be given to your NFT to strengthen it somehow or to change it, or if the blue bean is like the evil version. That has been something kicked around as well, but there's a lot of different possibilities there, and we're not entirely sure yet what that means. So there was a lot of hype and excitement that led to this most recent price surge. Before that, though, I think, as we discussed, the quality of what they're doing and the team behind it is what really led to it. So, Dan, was there anything else you noticed this last weekend that you thought played into, seeing the price go from in the teens up to the mid 30s at one point? It's now pulled back into the high 20s. The beans got as high as like 7.2 ETH, and now they're back around 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, an understandable price correction that is going to
Yeah.
happen with
Yeah.
every project. Like, you obviously had people who were like, "Oh, it's going to go straight to 50." And I'm just like, you can pump the brakes there a little bit. That's kind of crazy. But, what did you think about this last weekend, just seeing everything play out?
The only thing I can ask is NFTLA over? Is it done?
Yes. Yeah. Now the next conference is going on in Miami. So I don't know if they're going to have anything there. I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
NFTLA is complete.
what did you say last week again when we were on another episode of Web3 and Me? Something about when conferences end, everything seems to pump.
Yeah. Conferences tend to be slow times, and then when they're over, just this excitement builds. People who are at the conference may have seen or heard things that makes them more bullish, that drives their activity, that other people see that, and it just snowballs. And we saw that snowball effect, but this was even more extreme because you didn't have to be at NFTLA to see it all play out. Like, yeah, there was in-person stuff that you could have experienced. A lot of it was shown on Twitter. Like, the garden party that Azuki hosted, it looked really cool.
Yeah.
And video leaked from it, or not leaked, but people posted video from it, and that got him excited. And then I think, though, this is the first time that we've seen a airdrop of this magnitude happen during an in-person event.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just compounded the excitement around it. That
Yeah.
got people really, really pumped. And so, yeah, we had the double whammy of the conference ending, but also people seeing what Azuki did at the conference
Yeah.
and getting very excited about that.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed is we usually, so for people who don't know, we usually maintain a 1-to-5 ratio when it comes to like a parent project and then their airdrop, or at least like if it's really like relevant to the parent project. So I checked, and for Azuki it's close to 1-to-6. So that
Yeah.
might present a decent buying opportunity. No, like not financial advice, of course, but it's something I'm going to be looking into myself. Because what this really allows you to do is it really allows you to enter this ecosystem of a project without having to pay like 30 ETH, for example, or like
Yeah.
for Bored Ape, like 110, right? So
Yeah. I'm interested to see what happens for the people who own the bean pods who don't own an Azuki.
yeah, Yeah.
Is it going to be one of those things where, because they dropped 20,000 of them. There's no way that each Azuki holder is going to need two. I don't
Yeah.
think. So what is this going to look like? When are we going to hear more about it? Right now, there's a little bit of a lull in the market. So if you have a feeling
Yeah.
one way or another, I wouldn't be surprised to see the bean pods get up to 10, 15, 20 ETH in the coming months. Not financial advice, but that's kind of the approach I'm taking right now. Is there's a reason they dropped 20,000 of them. There's no coincidences with this project, just like Bored Ape Yacht Club. Like, they're really, really sharp. And that transitions into our next topic, which is, what can we learn from this? Because whether or not you got involved in Azuki early on, there's something to take away from it and things that you can learn and apply in the future. So, Dan, you'd mentioned the ERC 721A. I want to circle back to that
Mm-hmm.
because to me, one thing that I always look for in a new project is, are they innovating in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, ERC 721A, it's innovation at its finest, right? They completely reshaped how projects need to handle their minting process. Like almost well, I don't know about almost every project, but a large portion of the new projects they use ERC 721A, and they made it. Like like they save you so much money, and like if you want to talk about innovation, then there you go. They reshaped the entire like ecosystem. There you go.
Yeah. And if you look at Dutch auctions before and after Azuki,
Yeah.
there's a very stark difference.
Hmm.
Before Azuki, one of the better Dutch auctions was when Bored Apes did their mutant surprise auction. That still had really high gas though, so it didn't go like, it went smoothly as far as like no glitches in the
Yeah.
auction, but it was still incredibly expensive to mint. Like the gas on that was absolutely crazy. At one point to mint one, it was like a full Ethereum, which is nuts.
Yeah.
So, but ever since then, we've seen big companion Dutch auctions from Gutter Cat Gang, from World of Women, and all of those have gone very smoothly. World of Women's gas was a little on the higher side. Gutter Cat Gang, it really wasn't. And so they definitely have had a big impact on the minting process, on Dutch auctions, and I think that shows a lot about what they're capable of doing.
Yeah.
I I hear a lot from people as far as like, oh, well, what has this project done to deserve this price? And I think that's the wrong way to look at it, because when you come to buying anything, whether it's an NFT or a cryptocurrency or a stock, I guess not financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy anything. It's just kind of my way of viewing it, is like, it doesn't matter what they've delivered. You're not valuing your buy based on what they've already delivered to an
Yeah.
extent, right? It's what they're capable of doing in the future. And what they've done previously is a display of that. Like, it's shown that they can innovate, they can execute at a high level. They're very forward thinking. So that's one of the things that I think you can really take away from Azuki.
Yeah. And like that just goes to show everything is priced in, right? Like it's not what it's worth at the moment. It's like you said, what it's capable of. So, for example, if you buy any given project, you're also buying into their future and into their past. Like it sounds weird, but like everything they do and everything they have done and everything that they're going to do, everything's priced in. So, you're literally buying like the Azuki brand. So
Yeah, and I don't even know though if everything's priced in yet, because there's still so much on the way. I think
yeah.
that people have priced in what they've done so far, and they've priced in their potential to an extent, but it's similar to Bored Ape Yacht Club. I think
Hmm.
this is probably the best comparison because, from a pure dollar standpoint, Azuki hasn't caught up to Bored Apes or CryptoPunks as far as floor price goes, but it wouldn't surprise me if Azuki passed CryptoPunks within the coming months. I mentioned that on Friday. And if they were up near Bored Ape Yacht Club in the future, I think a combination of a lot of things could lead to that happening. So, there's still a lot of potential for Azuki to grow. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you should go out and drop $100,000
Yeah.
right now on an Azuki, because that's a lot of money. But if you're someone who wants to get involved, like I mentioned, Bobu the bean farmer is a good entry point. The beans are a good entry point. If you want to own an Azuki and share it with some friends, like whatever. But I think you can't go wrong at the moment to having some exposure to Azuki. I think they're continuing to innovate. They're delivering at a high level, and I expect them to continue to do that into the future.
I agree.
Anything else? Let's talk briefly about the fallout from this weekend. We had mentioned CloneX and Doodles pumped, and I know that you had gotten some derivative projects, Dan. So why don't you just
Oh yeah.
quickly dive into your thought process there, how you handled buying and selling those, and what you learned from it and what you think you can apply more in the future.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. I minted 10 Azuki. They're like a demonized Azuki, so they're like Azukis, but more like devilish traits, more like underworld traits on it. And it's not very low effort. That's what I noticed. The traits that they made for it were quite like high quality, and like they overall they looked good, but they're still like a derivative project, right? So what I noticed is that I think at the time that I minted them, Azuki wasn't that high, like 8 ETH, 9 ETH, 10 ETH maybe, or like 12. Um, and then on the run up, because like the Azuki they went to zero, like they were literally worth zero at one point, but they always hovered around zero, like zero and like point oh one. And then during the whole Azuki run up, you can see a lot of people who look for derivatives to see if they can like catch that right, kind of, because it's like a meme coin almost, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you buy in a meme coin and then you hope like, oh god, please go like 10x, you know. And so I
Yeah.
think a lot of people who want to cash in on the hype, they look for like derivatives, and then just go to any given derivative that has some volume or like some like floor price. So yeah, I held because they were worth zero. Like like should I sell if they were worth zero? Like I get nothing from it. And then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly they were worth like 0.12. So I sold all of those, and I was like, all right, well there you
Okay.
go. Because it's important to remember that 99 of projects they go to zero, but 99.9% of like the derivative projects they're going to like -1, all right? So
They're somehow going negative. I think that's also a good reminder that for most people, trying to time these markets and flip things quickly is a losing proposition. You know, Dan has experience doing it. I know you've taken some losses along the way too,
oh,
just like I
yesterday
have.
even.
So I think that this is a reminder for most people that if you're just getting into NFTs, trying to time these things and make flips and get profit that way is a very risky proposition, and you're probably going to lose. We've discussed in the past, 95% or so of people who try to flip NFTs end up losing money doing it. And Azuki is one of those examples where if you had gotten in at 1 ETH on the Dutch auction and you had just held, even for a few months,
Yeah.
you saw an incredible return. So yes, there's times to flip things pre-reveal. Hindsight's 2020 on Azuki, but for the most part, if you're out trying to do this flipping game, you're
Yeah.
probably going to end up getting wrecked because there are people who are more experienced, have better tools at their disposal, are part of these alpha groups that can manipulate the pricing of things. So be very cautious around that.
Yeah.
We at FLOLiO try to provide as many good tools as we can, and at the end of the day, you have to do the buying and selling decisions, and we just want to give as much good information to you as possible. So I think Azuki is well on its way to being a very high quality project. I'm not going to call it a blue chip yet because that term gets thrown around way too
It
much
does. It
for
does.
honestly any everything's been around for like less than a year, like all these projects we're talking about minus CryptoPunks. So like calling anything a blue chip is kind of ridiculous because all it takes is one extended bear market for
Yeah.
things to go to hell in a handbasket. So keep that in mind. Be realistic. As bullish as I am on Azuki, I still have a price point where I'm willing to sell if I get an offer or I see the floor run up because at the end of the day, maybe it becomes the biggest thing in the world, but I feel like that's a huge ask. So that is all I have to say about Azuki, Dan. Any final thoughts today before we head out?
Well, the only thing I'd like to add is that like in regards to flipping projects, is that
Hmm.
even if you win half your flips, you're probably still going to end up losing money. You have to pay fees and taxes, and so you have to be incredibly profitable in order to be profitable, right? So yeah, in that regard, be careful and play safe and play the long game, please. I beg you.
All right. I think that's going to do it for today. So if you are still watching at this point, thank you very much. We really appreciate your support. Please like the stream, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Twitter, spread the good word of FLOLiO to your friends, family, and we'll be back on Friday with fellow Bored Ape RDM41. He is making a proposal to the ApeCoin DAO regarding staking, so I'm very interested to hear what he has to say about that because it's been a hot button topic in the NFT world. So please join us live on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. For Dan, for the rest of the team at FLOLiO, I am Jeremy. Have a good week, everybody. Take care.
Oh, bye bye.